All right, let's talk about React2Shell. This was an absolute perfect storm. We're talking a critical vulnerability, exploitation that went from 0 to 100 in hours, and a frantic race against time that caught so many people off guard. And it all started with this one number, 10.0. In the world of vulnerabilities, that's the highest possible score you can get. A perfect 10.0 isn't just a high score, it's basically a five-alarm fire. It was a signal that one of the web's most fundamental building blocks was just broken. And this wasn't some theoretical academic risk. No way. For developers all over the world, this became a real-world nightmare, like literally overnight. People were waking up to find their entire cloud accounts banned for crypto mining, just like this Reddit user said. We're talking services down, accounts locked, and your reputation just tanking. Okay, so let's get into the weeds here. This thing, CVE 2025-55-182, hit the absolute core of the modern web. We're talking about an unauthenticated remote code execution vulnerability. And what that means is an attacker needed zero credentials, zero special access to completely take over a server. And it was in React server components, the tech that's the bedrock of so many modern apps built with frameworks like Next.js. And here's the part that's really terrifying. The attack didn't need any user interaction, it didn't need any special permissions, and it worked on default configurations. Let that sink in. This wasn't about you messing up a config file. If you were just running the software the way it was designed to run, you were wide open. So the big question is, how? How could an attacker get complete control of a server with just one single web request? Well, the anatomy of this exploit is honestly as impressive as it is terrifying. So the root cause here is something called unsafe deserialization. Now, what does that mean? Basically, the server was taking data from a client and just blindly trusting it. It would reconstruct that data without asking any questions. The keycard analogy is perfect here. It's like your keycard doesn't just unlock the door, it can also tell the building's security system to, disable all the cameras and unlock the vault. That's the level of misplaced trust we're dealing with. Okay, let's look at the kill chain. This wasn't a simple smash and grab. It was a really clever multi-stage process. First, the attacker created this weird self-reference loop to trick the server into exposing its internal objects. Then, they used that access to mess with core functions. That's called prototype pollution. From there, they could force the server to run their logic, and boom. The final step was triggering a handler to execute any command they wanted, like spinning up a reverse shell, just step by step taking the whole thing apart from the inside. And of course, this wasn't just some theory on a researcher's blog for long. Threat actors weaponized this flaw fast. Almost immediately, security advisories just like this one started popping up everywhere, warning that the core of modern web apps was under active attack. So this is where the race really begins. The second this thing went public, the clock started kicking. We're talking a classic zero-day sprint, defenders scrambling to patch versus attackers scrambling to exploit. And the prize? Millions and millions of servers. Just look at this timeline. It's insane. The vulnerability gets privately reported on November 29th, which is the right way to do it. But then, on December 3rd, it goes public. By December 4th, a working proof of concept exploit is already on GitHub for anyone to grab. And by the 5th, a global surge of attacks. We went from disclosure to worldwide exploitation in, less than 48 hours? The window to patch before you were a target was basically slammed shut. So who was actually doing the attacking? Well, it was the usual suspects and then some. You had your highly sophisticated state nexus groups like EarthLaMoa and Jackpot Panda, who were probably looking for long-term strategic access. But you also had a ton of opportunistic actors. The ransomware gangs, the botnet herders, and of course the crypto miners, all just looking to make a quick buck off the chaos. And the scale here is just staggering. By the middle of December, sensors at Gray Noise had seen over 8.1 million attack attempts. This wasn't targeted surgical stuff. This was automated, industrial-scale scanning and exploitation hitting basically every corner of the internet. Now here's the twist in the story. A lot of security teams did exactly what they were supposed to do. They saw the alert on December 3rd, they patched immediately, and they probably breathed a huge sigh of relief thinking, okay, crisis averted. But they were wrong, so wrong. So you patched on December 3rd. You're safe, right? You did your job. Well, that's the question everyone was asking. And the answer, which sent a whole second shockwave through the community, was a definite, resounding no. It turns out the first patch was, well, incomplete. While it did fix that critical remote code execution flaw, the big one, CVE 2025-55-182, security researchers who were digging into the fix itself found other nasty bugs still lurking there. The door was no longer wide open, but it definitely wasn't locked. And that led to the second wave. On December 11th, another disclosure drops. This time, it's for new vulnerabilities. One could crash your server with an infinite loop, a denial of service attack. Another, and this one is really bad, could actually leak your application's source code, exposing business logic, API keys, all of it. So the crisis wasn't over. It had just mutated. Okay, so with all that chaos, what does this actually mean for you and your team? Let's walk through the defensive playbook. This is the action plan you need to make sure you're actually, for real, protected this time. Okay, first things first, and this is absolutely critical. You have to patch again. The versions from that first fix on December 3rd are not good enough. They leave you exposed. You have to upgrade to the final versions that address all the issues. Check this matrix, find your component, and make sure you're on the required version or higher. No excuses. But patching alone isn't enough. You need defense in depth. So first, at your perimeter, get some web application firewall rules in place to block the obvious attack patterns. Second, hygiene. If you are unpatched for even a short time, you must assume your secrets are compromised. Rotate everything. And I mean everything. API keys, database credentials, the whole shebang. And third, rebuild your containers with distroless images. It minimizes the tools an attacker has if they do get in. Don't give them a foothold. Right, so let's shift to offense. Let's say you're worried you might have been compromised. How do you go hunting for the attackers? Here's what you need to look for in your logs. Okay, these are the breadcrumbs, the indicators of compromise that attackers leave behind. On the network side, look for weird traffic spikes on endpoints with those next action headers or payloads that have those telltale signatures like _proto or $@. On the host itself, this is the big one. Look for unexpected shell processes, like shell, bash, or curl spawning from your Node.js application. That is a massive red flag. It's the smoking gun that tells you someone is running commands on your server. And of course, check your temp directories for any suspicious files they might have dropped. And that brings us to the big, kind of uncomfortable question that React2Shell leaves us with. We live in a world where our frameworks can be vulnerable by default, where a flaw can be weaponized and launched at a global scale in less than 2 days. So in that world, is your patch fast strategy really fast enough? It really forces us to rethink our entire approach to security, doesn't it?